Setting good boundaries have been the topic of discussion all of this month on this channel and on my LinkedIn. And there's a lot of information out there about boundaries in general and what they are, why they're important, and more importantly, how to set them. Now, I could go on about making another big series of videos about how to do it, but today in this video I'm going to give you some fundamentals as a framework that you can use as a healthcare professional to set good boundaries with your patients in the workplace. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. For those who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. I coach healthcare professionals from non-English speaking backgrounds become better communicators and build a better relationship with their patients that is founded upon trust, credibility, and help them excel in their workplace as a person of excellence. So all of this month, if you check out my videos from last month and this month, we have been talking predominantly about the concept of boundaries. So we started off looking at what boundaries are and aren't, why healthcare professionals struggle to set boundaries, and we had my friend and a former guest on the channel, Susan Murray, appear again to give her perspective on boundaries because she's doing a lot of work in the field at the moment. But now I thought, let's sort of wrap everything up together and give like a little framework as to what boundary setting actually is. What are some things that you need to be mindful of? What principles that you need to base your boundary setting on? So as I mentioned in the beginning, boundary setting is something that I coach my clients on. So to get good at that, you actually will need to get on board with the coaching program that I have on offer. If you want to see if you would be a good fit for the coaching program, here's a link to my discovery call. So please make sure that you schedule a time for yourself if you are interested in pursuing this route. And just before I go into the video, lo and behold, Mel Robbins, who I speak about a lot on this channel and on LinkedIn as well, also made a video last month actually on what boundary setting is in the context of self-care. So again, I will leave that video over here. She's done a podcast episode on it. And if you are a healthcare professional, I would highly recommend listening to her podcast or watching her YouTube channel, because she actually interviews a lot of healthcare professionals on her channel. So she discusses things like not just mental health, but also like gut health, menopause, women's fertility and reproduction, brain health, and a whole heap. And also quite recently, she also interviewed a urologist on her channel. So you have a whole heap of healthcare professionals who get interviewed by her. So I would highly recommend checking out her channel and listening to her podcast. But anyway, just let's get straight into today's video on what are the fundamentals or the foundational principles that you need to abide by as a healthcare professional in order to set good boundaries with your patients. So let's get straight into it. Number one, get clear on what your boundaries are. Now, this sounds very self-explanatory and it would make sense, right? But you'd be surprised at so many people who are very gung-ho about they want to set boundaries. They want to take care of themselves. They want to prioritize themselves first. They don't want to burn themselves out. But they don't seem to have an idea or any understanding of what their actual boundaries are. So it helps that you need to take an inventory as to what is it that you are giving importance to. What is it that you value? What is it that you prioritize? And as a result, why is setting that particular boundary important in alignment with what you give importance to? Now, say for example, you are a very busy obstetrician or gynecologist, and you are also not only doing a job that's very stressful and demanding, but you also have a growing family yourself. So obviously, as a new parent, your priorities will shift. So that again is an example of what you value at that point. So you can say that, at this stage in my life, I'm a new parent and I need my time and attention has to go to my child who's a baby or an infant. So therefore, I need to prioritize that as well as balance that along with my professional responsibilities. So this is just one way to help you determine what you value and what your importance is, what you place importance to. So that's number one. Number 2, focus on yourself in the center or at the core and make I statements when you are setting these boundaries. Now, instead of, again, this happens quite often when you are actually trying to divert or divulge being responsible or being accountable for something. What people will tend to do is they will shift the responsibility or the burden or the blame or the other person. So instead of saying, please don't speak to me like that, for example, if you have a patient, right, randomly, who is being quite rude and condescending and dismissive, instead of saying, don't speak to me like that, or please don't speak to me like that, you make it about you. You can say, I don't appreciate you speaking to me like this. I'm only trying to help you. So I can only do that if you speak to me in a more respectful manner. So instead of, again, putting the blame and pointing the finger at the patient, you are being very clear about what your expectations are and what you will not tolerate. So make it about yourself, because at the end of the day, boundaries are about you. You are the main focus, the main priority. So yes, other people have to understand that and adhere to that, but you're not setting boundaries for anybody else. You're setting it for yourself, your peace of mind, your happiness, and your well-being. So as a general rule, make statements when you're setting a boundary or when you're vocalizing it. You please start with things like I, or even if you're doing it in a more positive way, you can say, I appreciate it when you speak to me in a kind and gentle manner, for example. So again, you are telling them what you want, and you're also telling the other person what you will not stand for or tolerate. So this is number 2. Number 3, keep it brief without over-explaining. Now, a lot of people who hesitate to set boundaries, who struggle with it, they don't really understand how to do it because, and I've looked at this in the previous video if you want to check that out, and their main hesitation is that they feel that they have to really explain themselves a lot. They need to always give a reason or a justification behind why these boundaries are, why they exist in the first place, and why they're important to you. Plain and simple, that's not even necessary. You need to just keep your boundary short, simple, succinct, easy to understand. And if you want to give a reason, not more than one sentence. So, for example, if as a healthcare provider, you have been placed to go on call quite often over a certain period of time, and you may have other commitments. So you may have commitments with your family, you may have commitments with your hobbies, whatever the case may be. So you feel like you are being unfairly treated or there's a disadvantage. So in that situation, instead of saying, I have family commitments, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I have commitments that are going in 10 different directions. Keep it very simple. If you feel that you're not able to meet those professional commitments at any point for whatever reason, keep it simple. Just say, I will not be able to do overtime or be on call at this period because of this. Plain and simple. You don't have to give any further explanation as to what it is. And again, you're making it about yourself more than having a dig at your employer for actually having those expectations. So put yourself at the front and center, and obviously keep the actual boundary when you're vocalizing it, keep it very, very brief, succinct, and simple. And number 4, finally, don't hesitate to disengage. And this can happen when, people have you've set a boundary once, you've made it very clear that you don't appreciate it, you've even given it in writing, for example, and yet you have people who keep on overstepping them, consciously or unconsciously. So if you look into Susan Murray's interview, which I will leave over here, Susan's interview, she does talk about some instances where some of her clients actually unconsciously decided to start to overstep her boundaries, even though it was part of the client agreement that she had. And the clients just did not respect that, and they started to cross them all the time. So at that point, she again gave them a warning that's saying that, I'm going to need to terminate our working relationship if this goes on for more than 3 times. So at that point, and she talks about disengagement really, really well in her interview, so I'd highly recommend go and checking it out. So don't hesitate to disengage if you feel that there is a repeated violation and a repeated breach of of your time and energy. Now, a lot of my new LinkedIn followers repeatedly tell me that, I have patients who don't make appointments and they just barge into my clinic and walk in or call me at all times of the night, and they do it all the time. That's a good example of when you can just disengage and say that, I'm not going to pick up this call. I'm not going to take this appointment, because you are, again, I've set a boundary about when I can be contacted, and the fact that you can only come and see me when you've made an appointment. So because you haven't done that, I will not be able to carry on with this consultation forward. And be very firm and confident and assured that you're doing this what's best for you, and that you need to have your time respected, and your time and your energy honored, and your expertise honored. So this is just scratching the surface really about boundary setting. We can really go more and more into it in so much more detail, but this is just the basics of what it is. So for this year, I just have one more video, which is going to be an interview with two of my very close child-free friends who are also healthcare professionals. So stay tuned for that next week. And in order to do that, make sure that you hit the subscribe button on the channel, as well as the notification bell. If you like this video, don't hesitate to leave it a like. And as always, thank you very much for your time, presence, attention, and engagement. And I will see you next week.